We need to move out at a 5500 hours. Make sure your team is ready.
Understood. I'll brief them immediately.
This is not a debate. You need to follow protocol.
But this doesn't make any
Their
sense.
papers against their chests, their boots splashing through puddles as they rushed toward the main administrative building. Among the commotion, a lone woman walked with measured steps, her worn-out olive uniform damp around the shoulders, sleeves slightly frayed, and boots scratched from years of field service. She carried no umbrella, no protective gear, just a small backpack that seemed oddly light for someone arriving at a military base. Most eyes ignored her. Some assumed she was a transfer from a forgotten unit. A few thought she was a veteran returned for medical evaluation or discharge paperwork. No one, not even the guards who opened the gate for her, recognized the calm confidence she carried beneath her understated appearance. Her name was Claire Dawson. Though she moved with a quiet grace, her eyes revealed a depth shaped by years of service, sacrifice, and decisions no one in the bustling morning rush could imagine. She paused briefly at the entrance, letting the rain trail down her face. For a moment, it looked as if she was absorbing the moment, breathing it in, remembering something only she knew. Then she stepped inside. Inside the main foyer, the warm air contrasted sharply with the cold drizzle outside. Recruits lined up in rows, talking nervously, adjusting their uniforms. Officers moved briskly between offices. The sound of printers, boots, and muffled conversations filled the hallway. Claire scanned the wall-mounted directory, tracing her finger until she found the office she needed: Command Evaluation and Strategic Review. With steady steps she headed toward the staircase, ignoring the curious glances from those who wondered why a woman in such a weathered uniform walked with such an air of assurance. Halfway up the stairs, a barking voice echoed through the hallway. "Hey, you there, hold up." Several heads turned. Claire paused and glanced over her shoulder. A tall man in a pristine, freshly pressed dress uniform strode toward her. His ribbons gleamed. His boots looked untouched by anything resembling real dirt. His posture was rigid, chin raised just slightly too high, signaling a man who liked the weight of authority, perhaps a bit more than he had earned. Major General Robert Harlan. At least, that was the title sewn beneath the row of decorations that looked more ceremonial than earned. Claire recognized his type instantly, not from rank, not from reputation, but from posture, the practiced firmness in his voice, and the dismissive glance he shot her uniform. She straightened slightly, her expression unreadable. He stopped a step below her and gave her attire a slow, mocking once-over. "What unit are you with?" he asked, loud enough for nearby recruits to hear. "Or did you borrow that uniform from a museum exhibit?" Several young soldiers stifled chuckles. Claire neither flinched nor smiled. She simply looked at him with a calm stillness that unnerved a few watching. "I'm here for an evaluation," she replied softly. Harlan raised a brow. "Evaluation? You?" He pointed at the frayed patch on her sleeve. "That uniform is outdated. Regulation standards require full dress for official reviews. You'd know that if you still belong to an active unit." She didn't look embarrassed. Instead, she lifted her backpack strap slightly higher on her shoulder. "I received instructions to report here directly." No uniform requirement was stated. Now several officers paused mid-stride, watching the exchange. They didn't recognize her. To them, she was just another forgettable face in a battered uniform being lectured by a superior. "Officer." Harlan laughed. Openly, carelessly, the kind of laugh that fills a hallway and invites others to judge. "You expect to walk into a strategic review dressed like you just crawled out of a decade-old bunker. I should send you right back out the gate." He leaned in slightly. "Unless you'd like to tell me you outrank me." His mocking tone implied the absurdity of such an idea. Claire's expression didn't change. Her voice remained gentle. "That won't be necessary." Harlan smirked, satisfied. He turned, waving to the recruits behind him. "This, everyone, is why you maintain your uniform and follow the rules. Otherwise you might end up like..." But he didn't finish, because Claire slowly unzipped a small inside pocket on her uniform. Then, with both hands, she pulled aside the flap covering her chest. For the first time, her rank became visible. Not the single star of a brigadier, nor the 2 of a major general, nor even the 3 of a lieutenant general. 4 stars. A full general. The entire hallway went silent. Harlan's jaw fell so quickly it seemed to make a sound. His face drained of color, and he stumbled a step backward. Whispering broke out among the recruits. Officers froze in place, staring in disbelief. Claire Dawson, the woman in the worn uniform, was General Claire Dawson. One of the most decorated and respected strategists still in service. A classified operations commander who had led missions few would ever know about. A leader whose decisions had saved thousands, even though the public only knew fragments of her contributions. Harlan attempted to speak, but his words tangled. General D. Dawson, I wasn't informed. You rarely are informed of things outside your immediate bubble, she said gently but firmly. That is why evaluations are necessary. His knees nearly buckled. Ma'am, I deeply apologize for the misunderstanding. Claire didn't raise her voice. She didn't humiliate him in return. She simply restored the flap over her badges and continued climbing the stairs. But she paused one step above him and looked down, not with anger, but with something far more powerful. With all due respect, General Harlan, she said quietly, a uniform's condition does not reveal a soldier's worth. Character does. She continued upward, leaving him frozen in place. The hallway slowly resumed motion. But the atmosphere was transformed. The recruits watched her with awe. Officers whispered, and Harlan remained stiff, grasping the railing, realizing the emptiness of his arrogance. Claire reached the second-floor office and walked through the door without hesitation. Inside, several colonels and analysts stood when they saw her. They had been expecting her arrival, though not her manner of entry. A woman with graying hair, Colonel Teresa Monroe, stepped forward and shook her hand warmly. General Dawson, she greeted. It's an honor to finally have you here. Thank you, Claire said softly. Let's begin. The room filled with quiet respect. Screens flickered on. Maps glowed across the conference table. But before the briefing could start, Claire held up a hand. One moment. Before we discuss strategy, I want to address something else. The room fell silent, waiting. There is a culture issue on this base, she said calmly. I witnessed it firsthand the moment I walked in. Judgments made by appearance. Respect offered based on polish, not on principle. Leadership begins with humility, not ego. Strength with empathy, not intimidation. Her tone was steady, but her message cut through the room like a sharpened truth. Colonel Monroe nodded solemnly. We've felt it too. Many have. Claire breathed in, then exhaled. Change won't come from orders alone. Change begins with example. Unbeknownst to her, outside the room Harlan had been standing silently. He had followed her, not to defend himself, not to justify his behavior, but because something in her eyes had shaken him more than her rank ever could. He hovered near the doorway, listening, hoping she wouldn't notice him. She did. Without turning, she said, General Harlan, you may enter. The room turned to see him step inside, visibly humbled, nothing like the confident man who had mocked her minutes earlier. He swallowed hard. General Dawson, I am deeply sorry for my behavior. I acted disrespectfully. I made assumptions I had no right to make. And I was wrong. Claire looked at him fully for the first time. Not with superiority, not with resentment, with the quiet gaze of someone who had grown far beyond pride. Do you know why your apology matters? She asked. He shook his head slightly. Because recognizing failure is the beginning of real leadership. And because your apology will matter more to those you lead than to me. Harlan bowed his head. I will do better. I believe you will, she replied. Not because of your rank, but because you've chosen humility over ego. The room felt different now. Lighter, grounded, human. Later that afternoon, Claire walked out of the building and back into the open air. The rain had stopped, and sunlight reflected off the wet pavement. Recruits parted as she passed, not out of fear, but respect. A few even whispered her name softly, as if uttering something legendary. But she didn't walk with the arrogance of someone admired. She walked like someone who had seen the cost of ego, the price of war, and the weight of decisions that could never be undone. Near the gate, she saw General Harlan standing alone. He approached her carefully. General Dawson, may I ask something? She nodded. Why do you still wear that uniform? Claire glanced down at the worn fabric. Her fingers brushed the faded sleeve as if feeling the memories embedded in every thread. This uniform has traveled with me through every moment that shaped me, she said softly. It reminds me where I started. What I've lost, who I've fought for, and who I serve. She looked up. It reminds me to stay human. A long silence passed. Then Harlan nodded slowly. I understand, he whispered. I think you do, she replied. As she stepped past him, she paused once more and looked at him with a gentle smile. Every leader has a moment that changes them, she said. Let today be yours. Harlan swallowed hard, moved in a way he hadn't expected. Thank you, for not humiliating me. Humility, she said, is rarely learned through humiliation. It's learned through compassion. And with that, she walked toward the setting sun, her silhouette reflected in the shining pavement. The base behind her felt quieter, reflective, as though a shift had begun, not through orders but through example. That evening, rumors of the encounter spread, not as gossip but as inspiration. Soldiers talked about the general in the worn uniform who carried more strength in her calm voice than others carried in medals. They spoke of how she treated arrogance with empathy and disrespect with dignity. Many reflected on their own behavior, reconsidering how they treated those they assumed were beneath them. General Harlan, especially, could not shake her words. He reevaluated everything. How he spoke to his officers, how he viewed recruits, how he measured worth. And over time, he became a different man. More patient, more grounded, more human. Months later, when Claire returned to the base, she noticed something different immediately. Recruits walked with greater confidence. Officers greeted each other with sincerity instead of competitiveness. Harlan approached her with genuine respect, not fear, not flattery, but admiration. You changed this place, he told her. She smiled softly. No, you all changed yourselves. I only reminded you what you already knew. He nodded. Still, thank you. And as Claire Dawson walked away once more, she felt something warm inside, not pride, but hope. Hope that kindness still held power in a world that often celebrated brutality. Hope that humility could coexist with authority. Hope that compassion, even in the heart of a military base, could transform more than attitudes, it could transform people. The sun dipped behind the horizon, casting amber light across the parade ground. Claire paused to take it in. The world felt vast, full of battles yet to come, both outside and within. But she believed in something deeper than strength or strategy. She believed in humanity, for in the end, the most powerful victories were not won on battlefields. They were won in hearts. And on that day, the day a general laughed at her uniform but froze at her badges, she had proven that true power was never worn on the shoulder. It lived in the soul,